I'm standing here at Dunmara, which is in Outback, Australia. I'm standing in front of the wreck of a 1927 Leyland Terrier. This truck was used by a chap by the name of Healy to haul freight. Hauling stores from Timber Creek west of here, Healy's truck put a conrod through the side of the motor. Healy, despite being broken down on a remote outback track, alone and unassisted, dismantled the motor, repaired the damage and went on with delivering his load. Of course, back in the day you had to make do with what you could. He's got a big hole in the side of the crankcase, and how he dealt with this was just creating a patch, patching it. And you can see that today, which is just a piece of steel over a bit of a gasket held in place by a bracket just into the inside of the motor. Quite an interesting thing to do at the roadside, I can tell you. Things have moved on since Healy's day. Outback trucks are much bigger and more dependable, and the roads are generally better too. But the distances are still large and driving not for the ill-prepared. Broken down on a dirt track in the outback, Noel Healy had the tools, the knowledge and the spares to get his truck fixed up and back on the road. Can we still do that today? Hello and welcome to another episode on the White Dog Garage YouTube channel. Over the last 6 months, the wife and I, along with Lulu the dog, have been on a trip around Australia. Now along the way we've seen a few people suffer mechanical failures. We've been able to help a few, some we haven't been able to help, and some have been beyond help. On such a journey, or any outback trip really, car and caravan dealers and even mechanical workshops can be a day or more away. Recovery can be uncertain and costly. You'll need to be carrying a certain amount of self-help in your setup. This video will be about the tools and spares that we carry in our car and caravan, and a few tips on making sure that everything survives the journey. The tools and spares that I'll cover in this video specifically relate to the Ford Ranger, its Mazda BT50 derivative, and Jayco caravans. But it is the principles that I will also share that can be applied to any car and caravan that's going to embark on such an outback journey or a trip around Australia. And I hope you find it useful. Let us start with the tools. So I've assembled all the tools that we carry, and I will go through them individually. Probably the most important thing to note is that there are individual bags for most items. There's only one box. There is no big steel toolbox. And the reason for that is it's all weight related. It's also about poking things in different corners of the vehicle. And it is also about grouping tools for specific activities together, such as electrical work. The first bag I'm going to talk about is what I call my setup bag, and it's the bag that I have bits and pieces in that I may need at any given time just on the road. So I have a tarp that I can lie on. I have a kneeling pad. You might think that's just for an old man, but I can tell you when you're out on an area covered in spiky burrs, it's a godsend. I've got some leather gloves, I've got some cable ties, I have got some hand cleaner, I've got pegs and guy ropes, which are really about just tying down the awning, etc. I have a few of these, and it pays to have a few of these. Over the years I see lots of caravanners who've donated a tap connector to the caravan park, and as I say, spare D-links, etc. I have some tools, and I will provide a list of all the tools. I have a trouble light, I have a wheel spanner, a piece of pipe which is used for the weight distribution hitch. I have an inspection mirror. That's a valuable thing. If you're worried about something underneath the vehicle, save you crawling underneath, just out with the trusty inspection mirror and move it along, see if whatever's rattling is not anything significant. I have a shifting spanner, and I have grips as well, and a tyre gauge. The other thing I have is a multimeter. You'll see later that I have an electrical tool bag, but I keep the multimeter here because I like to keep an eye on my batteries. The remaining item that I have in the bag is a multi-tool. It's not a Leatherman, it's just a cheapo one that you can buy. It has a host of little tools, knives, etc., screwdrivers. I find that this is just an easy go-to if you just got a screw you need to do up or something like that. It's not something for a major overhaul, but there's pliers in there, there's all sorts of little things in there that you can use, and it's just handier than getting out the tool bag. Something else that I missed in the setup bag was this little container with bungee cords with toggle balls, as they're called. This is what they look like. They're useful little devices that you can curl around something to just hold it still. You buy it as a container from the shop of these, and you find them invaluable little ties for your camping experience. For example, in our case, we've got a few in play, and one of them does a very simple job. It keeps the flap over the electrical cord from flapping in the breeze, and we're lying in bed at night and not having to listen to a tap tap tap. So this is my tool bag, which has got all the mechanical tools in it pretty well, apart from what you saw in the setup bag. Again, I will put a list somewhere, so you don't need to write it down as such, but there's a great range of things, so marking pen, knife, there is a measuring tape, another marking pen, series of punches, centre punch, nail punch. Now, everything is in its own little bag. So, screwdrivers, I need screwdrivers, just take that bag. Pliers, grips. So, I've got multi-grips, I've got side cutters, etc. They're all sitting in there. I have a series of open end and ring spanners. I find these are the best for on-road repairs, so this style of thing. I have what I call the miscellaneous bag. It's got things like Allen keys, little probes, torque keys, etc. There are, start with this one, there are sockets. There are lots of sockets. I have them on the little socket holders just because it's so much easier when you're looking. So it's the sockets that I carry, it's the sockets that I need. And of course, to go with the sockets you need ratchets, So there's another bag with the ratchets in. As a rag, it's always a useful thing to have. And inside is, because it just ends up scratching everything and it's hard to get out, is a wire brush. Shifting spanners. There's 3 of them. Adjustable wrenches, whatever you want to call them. Big one, intermediate and small. A long breaker bar for the sockets. A small set of, or a small pipe wrench. A hammer, of course, that's an important tool. A cold chisel. A file. A couple of screwdrivers that are needed but don't fit in the screwdriver bag. A little magnetic pickup tool. Again, you drop something, you need to find it. A tool for removing oil seals. A hacksaw and spare blades, of course. A clamp. These are a set of sockets for what are called tamper-proof screws, and there is the odd one lying around the vehicle and the Caravan. The toolkit itself started life, it's been added to, but essentially it started life as a King's toolkit that you can buy. I've got no affiliation to King's or four-wheel drive super centre. It was a good price. It had most of what I needed in metric sizes. I do have a lot of metric tools in the garage, but they're the garage's tools, and I find that if I pack them in the travel stuff with the car and caravan, they're never there when I need them in the garage for actual work. The original kit bag for the King's toolkit was not robust enough to last, and I have replaced it with one of my heavier work bags. However, the King's toolkit did use smaller bags to hold different tool groups, and liking that idea a lot, I got the wife to run up some additional bags, which are the pink ones that you see here. The next bag is the electrical bag, remembering that the multimeter is sitting in the setup bag because it gets more frequent use. So, in the electrical bag, we have jumper cables. We in fact have 2 sets of jumper cables. You're probably wondering why I have 2 sets of jumper cables. I'll come to that later. Cable ties. We have a spare Anderson plug. We have fuses, a great range of them. So various fuses that the Caravan and the vehicle use. If we're talking Ford Ranger or Mazda BT50, they like the mini blade fuses like this. Caravan itself uses standard blade fuses, and then there's the odd maxi blade fuse, which is for the heavier duty stuff. There's also heavier fuses here, which the vehicle also use. I also have a 12 volt soldering iron. That's a handy little thing, just plugs into the cigarette lighter or battery pack. Stand for the soldering iron. There's a little box of odds and ends for various little jobs, plus some solder. A crimping tool. Trailer connector for the Caravan, other wires, insulation tape. Next bag of tricks is essentially a compressor bag, but I guess it's tyre related, except there is no tyre gauge. That's gone off to the setup bag. Tyre inflator here. A hose that connects to it, and the compressor itself. I have cut the cable here and refitted it with an Anderson plug, which I just connect into either the tow vehicle or the caravan, depending on what I need. Okay, the next thing is a tyre repair kit. Has all the usual things that you get with tyre repair kits. The other things that I have here is a little puncture repair kit. That's not for the vehicle, that's for other things around the place. I have an air hose that I can connect up to the compressor. Air fittings. I have actual battery connectors with an Anderson plug so that I can just hook it up to somebody's battery. The other thing I have is a tyre deflator. It's the usual type that you screw onto your valve, deflate the tyre. The only comment I would make about the tyre repair kit is that you probably need to practice these things before you do it in the wilderness. Particularly with light truck tyres and with four-wheel drive tyres, it's a little harder than the YouTube videos would show or the instructions will show. It's always good to have a little bit of practice so that you know what you're up against. My suggestion is that next time you have a tyre that's getting ready to be replaced, drill a hole in the tyre, I'll let the air out of course, drill a hole in the tyre and then practice doing the plug repair. So a couple of small items now, that's also essential equipment. So we have a standard hydraulic jack, 4,000 kilo, 4-ton bottle jack, and its a little handle to pump it up. It's quite a useful thing. Both the caravan and the tow vehicle have got their standard equipment, original equipment jacks. They're mechanical jacks, they do work. You find in some situations it's very nice to have one of these that you can just slip in and pump up. Another item we have here is a 1000 amp lithium jump starter kit. It's another King's product. Again, same old caveat, I don't have any financial relationship with King's. It's a simple device. You plug in your jumper leads here and you wait till the light goes green and then you're ready to hit the starter on the vehicle. It comes with a series of chargers, other little devices. You can, if you want, use it to do a USB charge. Useful little unit, I've used it a number of times. We're on to the big blue box. I used to have the contents of this box basically in bags, and then it just got a little bit messy and I went out and I bought the big blue box, which is dust sealed, etc., to hold everything. So we've got some more tools in here, of course. I have battery drill, an impact driver, bits to go in said battery drill and impact driver. I also have a battery grinder. I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about the battery tools that I carry. It's a Tool Pro set. That's a product line of Super Cheap Auto. Again, no financial connection with that company. So we've got an 18 volt drill with a clutch, and to go with the 18 volt drill I have a set of drill bits, jobber drills, running from 1.5 millimeters all the way through to 13 millimeters, or imperial measurements about a 1/16 of an inch all the way through to half an inch. I have an impact driver, again 18 volts. Along with the impact driver, I have a series of bits to go on the impact driver. So the typical thing is Phillips head number 2 bit, but I also have bits that can be used to drive sockets. Not particularly hard, it's not a rattle gun for undoing wheels necessarily, but there are times when it would just be nice if we could just undo things a little faster. There's a charger with that. Obviously when we've got shore power in the caravan park we can connect straight into a power point, but we also have an inverter so we can charge it up off the battery in the caravan. Using the same batteries is this battery grinder. Nice little unit. To go with that, a couple of grinding discs, but of course also cut-off discs. Some 1 millimeter thick cut-off discs, some heavier duty 2.5 millimeter thick cut-off wheels. I'm quite happy this is a good enough battery tools set that I need for the trip. I used it in our workshop for a week or so before I consigned it to the caravan. No, but it was mainly to see that it was nice to use, well, see that it was usable, and also see that it would perform the jobs that it might have to do, and they all work very nicely. It's a nice light with it's a 1.5 amp battery, which is pretty small, but usually you only got a short job, you're not using it all day, and it works fine for that purpose. Other things that I have in the box is spare parts for the car. I don't carry very much. I have a spare fan belt, drive belt, serpentine belt. I have a spare fuel filter. I have a spare air filter, and I have a litre of engine oil. Now, your particular vehicle might have its own individual problems, but it all gets a bit silly if you've got, in one vehicle's case, a spare rear differential sitting in the back, or another vehicle's case, a spare front differential sitting in the back. These are just the basics. These are the most likely things that may or may not be needed. If you drive on dirt roads, it's a bit hard not to in the outback, having a spare air filter is a good move. And the other thing is, you just never know where your fuel's going to go bad, and having a spare fuel filter is also a good idea. Good old WD-40 water dispersal spray can, some engine degreaser spray can, power lube with PTFE. It's one sort of dry lubricant, and another lubricant which is silicone. It's a water repellent. It also works as a lubricant. The big difference is this one's a dry one. This one you'll see an oily film that goes with it. 2 parts cement for gluing PVC. Drain pipes on the Caravan are PVC. We have a little pack of roof and gutter sealant. I have a grease gun in there. It's a messy little thing, and a pot of grease. Every now and then I would lube the suspension on the Caravan in particular. Other things that I have, the old 100 mile an hour tape, cloth tape, the emergency repair silicone tape. This is very useful. If you burst a water hose or something, it's just something you can wrap around and it will seal the leak for you. Gorilla Glue. This is a metal repair solid epoxy, if you like, two-part that you cut and mould in your hand and then apply. Very useful if you ever sprung a leak in a radiator, sprung a leak in a sump or something like that. It's something that you can actually repair. You can use it where you might actually weld some metal in. Talking about welding, the reason I have two battery cables is where I need to do some on the track welding. Now, I'm not going to go any further with that. If you want to hit me up in the comments and ask, I might make a video about it. The reality is, if you're welding up something that's broken, piece of chassis, differential on a particular four-wheel drive, you need to know what you're doing. You'll need that grinder, you'll need your welding rods, you'll need to get it reasonably correct. It can't be cocky poo welding. It'll have to be solid to get you out of trouble. So there's a bit more to it, and I was going to say more about that, and then I thought, well, there's no sense doing that because you may not have the skills, and you really need the skills to be able to do this. But that's why I have two sets of battery cables. It's so I can run two batteries together, and I have a little seal pack of welding rods if I need to weld something up. We have Teflon tape for water joints. We have tape for gas joints. We have a funnel, a little container of disposable gloves. We have good old Araldite. We have these little packs of super glue, cyanoacrylate glue. We have a box of just bits and pieces that can be used. We have a little bottle of screws and hose clamps, sandpaper and wire. All things that you might potentially use on the road. And one other thing that I have is little wall plugs, which is it's a plug that goes in a hole and you put a screw in there and it expands out. The Caravan, there's various components around the Caravan. You find these a useful little thing for just fixing holes where the screw is pulled out. Works very well in fiberglass, or it will also work in the plywood that the Caravan is made out of. The big blue box is dust proof and waterproof, and because of this, its purpose is to hold spare parts, battery tools, various spray cans, grease, oils, adhesives and small items, etc. Almost forgot, spares for the Caravan. I'll cut that out. Carry a few spares for the Caravan. Pressure limiting valve for the mains water. A new seal for the toilet cassette. A set of spare bearings. You're unlikely to lose all 4 sets of bearings on the Caravan, but you could lose one. and certainly if you lose one, that's telling you to do some servicing on the remaining ones. So just carry one set for that. And then finally, spare water pump. So if you think about the water pump, there's no manual pump on these bigger caravans. It relies on its water pump. You're going to have to crawl under the van to get water out of your tank, and then do a splash bath, etc. It all wears a bit thin. So the thing is, if the water pump packs it in, you've got another one to replace it with. One other spare I missed showing is an awning locking knob. This is a screw knob with a large flat octagonal nut, which is used to clamp in position the brace arms at either end of carefree awnings. I've lost 2 of these over the years on 2 different caravans, so I always carry a spare. What follows here is a list of all the tools, spares and other things that I carry as my travel workshop. The setup bag has a mixture of vehicle and caravan checking items, along with items for tying down the awning and the privacy screens, setting up hoses, etc. If you want to record these lists for your own use, I suggest you pause the video on each list and either do a screen capture or note the items listed. As much as I can, I've avoided using brand names, but all the items listed are readily available in Australia, and I'm sure international viewers can probably source a similar item in their own country. We also carry some off-road recovery items, but I've not listed these here as they are beyond the scope of this video. The tools and spares are important, but a little bit of prevention goes a long way. Apart from keeping the tow vehicle and the caravan serviced and roadworthy, there are a few things that you should check at the start of your day and whilst you're going along. You need to have a routine of checking both before you start off and as you go along. Every day I will check the various components of the rig. So start with the engine here. If you've got a Ranger or a Ford sourced BT50, you'll recognise the system as a 3.2 litre 5-cylinder diesel. So we've got the coolant here. Have a look to see that it's in level. If you lose any, you need to look into that. You've got brakes here. It's both, this is a manual. There's both brake and clutch fluid is all in the same. Just make sure the level's there. Check the oil. Dust in your air will kill your diesel faster than anything. So, we start off with the air cleaner, make sure it's all good. Then we've got a pipe that runs down, flexible pipe that runs down to the turbo, and we need to make sure that that's not come loose anywhere. The rest of it's steel till it gets around to over here, where it comes up out of the intercooler and goes into the intake. So again, you're looking to see nothing's come loose. While you're there, have a look at the drive belt. See that it's not delaminating in any way or perishing. Just have a look at your water hoses. While you're walking around, just have a look across the motor, just if there's any leaks that you're not aware of. The batteries these days, they have a little sight glass. That sight glass will show green when the battery is fully charged, and it's essentially a specific gravity meter. It just works by optical illusion, if you like, and if the battery's not charged, it'll go clear, and sometimes there's a red dot down there that then becomes visible when it's clear, which tells you it's bad. But generally you're just looking for that green dot to make sure that the starter battery is fully charged and in good condition. Now, I have gone through the 4 wheels on the tow vehicle, the 4 wheels on the Caravan, and I've checked the tyre pressures and I have checked that the wheel nuts are tight. I've also looked at the condition of the tyre. Okay, it's a simple thing, it's got lots of tread, that's good. The other thing you need to do is run your hand over it. You're looking for any lumps and bumps. I just want to go into a bit more about what you're looking for when you do a pre-trip tyre inspection. So looking at the tyre here, you need to run your hands around the inside of the wheel. You're feeling for bumps. You also need to, you usually see visually any bumps on the other side of the wheel, on this front side. The other thing to look for is that it's reasonably flat across the tread pattern. Now you can have some scrubbing on the edges and that will look like a particularly smooth area, but what you're particularly looking for is where the tread in the centre seems to be forming a bit of a V. So the tyres are made up of cord and what they call steel belts, but it's actually steel wire. When a tyre delaminates, and that's usually the cause of your blowouts, you can have the centre of this come up because the outside's held by the wool, but the centre moves out just with the air pressure, and that's where the steel belts are actually delaminating from the tyre carcass. Equally, if you have a bulbous thing on either side of the sidewalls, that will be due to a fracture in the cords that run around the sidewalls, and these things you also need to be looking for because that will almost certainly eventually lead to a blowout of the tyre. Getting ready to hit the road. So the hitch is on the tow ball. It's got a little clip and I just hold it in place with an R-clip. The power cable for the fridge is in. The trailer connector is in. This one is for the rear camera on the Caravan. The weight distribution hitch is in place. The handbrake is off. So we're all reasonably ready to go. Our chains are done up and they're crossed, and we have the breakaway cable up here on the body of the vehicle, and of course the jockey wheel has been removed and stowed. Final check that you need to do is the checking of the trailer brake. This is a Heyman Reese unit, and with the green light it tells you that the brakes are connected on the Caravan, and the emergency stop is you push the button in and it'll go red telling you the brakes have been applied. Equally, if you apply the foot brake, it'll come on as well. Now, the simple way to do this is to start the vehicle rolling forward, which I do, and then I will, because this is a manual, I'll push the clutch in and I push the button, the brakes come on, and the Caravan stops the whole thing rolling forward. If you've got an automatic, of course, probably the easy thing to do is to just flick it back into neutral, or push it from drive into neutral, and then check the brake like that. It's important that you do this every day, and I would normally do it as we start off, just 5-10 kilometers an hour in the caravan park or the campsite. Just get it all rolling and then just check the brake, and you should feel the caravan stop and the whole rig stop. We have just pulled into a roadside stop. Leaving the motor going, I jump out and start checking the tyres. They should be warm to touch, but not so warm that you cannot put your hands on them. I'm also looking and feeling for any signs of delamination. Checking the caravan tyres, I also insert my fingers through the rim spider to feel the temperature of the hub. All four, or two if you have a single axle caravan, should have a similar temperature. If one is a lot hotter than the rest, this is a sign of a binding brake or a failing wheel bearing, which needs to be investigated and rectified straight away. I also run my eyes over the caravan hitch, making sure that all the connections are still sound. I'm also looking as I walk around for any fluid leaks on the ground, either from the vehicle or the caravan. You should have noticed that I left the engine going during the roadside check. This is not for the purposes of a quick getaway, it's about looking after the motor. Our rig weighs in at a shade under 6 tonnes, 6,000 kilograms, and travelling down the highway at 100 kilometres an hour or so, 62 mile an hour in imperial measurements, and we've pulled into the roadside stop. The motors in these vehicles are turbo diesels, and with that sort of weight it's working hard. And the best thing you can do for it after coming down from a run like that is to let it idle for a while. The turbo, which works particularly hard, gets a chance to slow down, cool down, and the whole motor gets a chance to relax. And this is one of the secrets to making these overworked diesels they like to have these days last that little bit longer. With the caravan attached, the tow bar works pretty hard, and it's a good idea to keep an eye on all the bolts that hold the tow bar onto the vehicle, all the bolts that hold the tow bar together, and of course the nut on the tow ball. Because of this, you should check your tow bar mounting bolts and also the tow ball nut on a regular basis. Maybe not every day, but at least every 1,000 kilometres, 600 miles. Are the bolts that hold the tow bar together tight? Are the bolts that hold the tow bar onto the vehicle tight? Is the nut on the end of the tow ball tight? You can go around with a spanner and check all of these, and that's good. One of the little shortcuts that I use is to use a paint marker to trace a line on each of the important bolts so that I can at a glance see whether it's moved. It's an easy thing to do. With bolt heads, you just draw your paint line, straight line across the top of the bolt head and onto the flat metal that it's attached to. Likewise with the nut, you just draw a line across the nut and down onto the surface that it is securing. If it's coming undone, you will see those lines start to move apart, the one on the surface and the one on the nut, and that's a quick way to check that it's all good. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video useful in your own preparation for travelling with your car and caravan in the outback. We're filming this on the final leg of our trip around Australia. The tools and spares that I've carried, well, I've not used any of the spares, but the tools have certainly had a bit of use in routine servicing of the car and caravan, and also a few minor repairs along the way. But the tools have also been used to help out a few other travellers who have not been as well prepared, and that's why I've made this video. Once again, thanks for watching the White Dog Garage YouTube channel, and I hope to talk to you on another video. Thank you.